Here we go. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. Tonight we're going to be learning Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Beis and Ayin Ches Amud Aleph. These are two monster amudim that will put us at the Mishnah on the top of Ayin Ches Amud Beis. And then, because tomorrow is a regular day, schedule-wise, I can hopefully get most of the way down on Ayin Tes Amud Beis, and then we'll be caught up. We're getting there. We're getting there. As a little bit of a frame for today, we began on Shabbos speaking about the Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Vav Amud Beis, and it'll help just to read that first line of that Mishnah, where we learned that Chamisha Dvarim Bayin Betuma Ve'ein Nechalim Betuma, that there were 5 types of korbanos that are detailed in the Mishnah that are brought Betuma, but they're not eaten at all. They're not eaten. So it's a very unique type of dichotomy where you can be makriv, but you can't be ochel. And now what we're going to do today is ask a question that as to whether or not Rabbi Yeshua fits with our Mishnah. The question is one amud long. The question is an amud. The question starts with savruha, which is a little bit more than halfway down on Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, and the question goes 3 lines into the wide lines on Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. So it's a multi-step question. Not a difficult question necessarily. It just has a couple of steps to it. It's not inherently difficult, just a couple of layers. And then we will provide 4 answers to that question. And then we're going to do the same thing with Rabbi Yossi. And then we'll learn one last sugya before we wrap up for the night. So we're almost 2/3 of the way down, Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph. Let's get started. Savruha, under the assumption that we hold as follows. If we assume de lekule alma tuma dechuya hi betzibur, we know, of course, that sometimes a person can bring a korban when there's a tzibur that's tuma, that's tameh. And this is based on a machlokas. This is a general chakira in the world of Gemara, and certainly in the world of the Rishonim, and even more so in the world of Brisk. When we say that something is mutter, is it mamish mutter, or is it what's called dechuya? It's not really mutter, but because of the way things played out, we're therefore lenient. So the difference in hutra and dechuya is that hutra is just carte blanche. You're good. You don't have to make any accommodations. Everything's fine. Dechuya is like, okay, if we could have avoided it, we would have avoided it. So let's see how this plays out. According to this first assumption of the Gemara, Sabruha, if we assume the following, the Lekule Alma, that really in general we hold that Tuma is dechuya hi betzibur, and therefore, because Tuma is dechuya, because it's not really ideal that we're being matir to bring a korban betuma. It's not ideal. It's dechuya. Okay, the halacha allows it, but it's not ideal. Therefore, ubaya tzitz l'ratzos, we know that the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol had the power to create ritzui, to allow for a korban that's otherwise tameh to be brought. So if you put these 2 things together, the korban is only mutter betuma because it is dechuya. And what was the functionality to make it mutter b'dechuya, to bring the tuma b'dechuya? It was the tzitz. So if we assume that, then that's assumption number 1. And let's just build out this first assumption that tuma is dechuya and that the tzitz is needed for ritzui. The lekatana de shamasle damar tuma hutra b'tzibur ela Rabbi Yehuda. Only one tana is of the opinion that in general tuma is hutra b'tzibur. Everybody else holds tuma is dechuya. And what is the brisa where we see that Rabbi Yehuda holds tuma hutra b'tzibur? The Tanya, the brisa writes, tzitz bein sheyeshno al mitzcho bein she'eno al mitzcho meratzeh divi Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon is of the opinion that whether or not the tzitz is on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol, whether or not he's wearing it, it has the capacity to do ritzui, to create a willingness before a Kadosh Baruch Hu for a korban to be accepted. However, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no. Odehu al mitzcho miratzeh. If it's still on his head, then yes, it can create ritzui. Ein odehu al mitzcho, ein miratzeh. And if he's not wearing it, it doesn't create ritzui. So this brisa continues. Amar lo Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says to Rabbi Yehuda, no, you can't say that he has to be wearing it. Kohen Gadol yochiach. Kohen Gadol b'yom HaKippurim yochiach. A Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is your raya. Why? She'ein al mitzcho. The Kohen Gadol does not wear metal on Yom Kippur. Why doesn't he wear metal? So Rashi, a beautiful Rashi, just about halfway down, a drop more. Rashi, Dibur Hamaschil, She'eno al Mitzchol. Why doesn't the Kohen Gadol wear the tzitz on Yom Kippur? De'ha'ein nichnas sham bebigdei zahav. Kide amrina b'Rosh Hashanah, de'ein kategor na'aseh sanegor. that which you use, the gold that was used for the Egel Azav, you can't now walk into the Kodesh HaKodashim Lifnai V'Lifnim with it's just not right. It's a stira minei ubei. If you walk in there, you're going to remind the Kodesh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol about the Egel Azav. So ein kategor nases sanegor. Even though normally wearing the big day Kohen is a dindo rice, it's a mitzvah rice, and Yom Kippur we didn't wear. So back in the Gemara, back in the Brisa says, Rav Shimon says to Rav Yehuda, wait a minute, we can see that there was ritzui in Yom Kippur, and he wasn't even wearing it. I proved my point. Says the Gemara, no. Amar lo hanach liyom kippurim shetuma hutra b'tzibur. It's totally different, says Rabbi Yehuda, because tuma is hutra b'tzibur. What does that imply about Rav Shimon? It implies mechlal, Reb Shimon savar tuma dechuya hi b'tzibor. So that's assumption number one, is that tuma is dechuya b'tzibor, and we need the tzitz. We need the tzitz to be meratzeh. We need the tzitz to allow for that tuma, which is dechuya. It's b'diavad. It's not ideal that we're being matir. Okay, we let it happen, but it's not ideal. So that's assumption number one. And part two, we're building a question here. Part one is the assumption that tuma is dechuya b'tzibur and we need the tzitz. And here's assumption number two: udukuli alma ein hatzitz meratza alachilos. And when the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol creates a ritzui that it allows for a korban to be usable, that's only as it relates to hakrava, but not as it relates to achila. The tzitz is only good for taking a korban betuma and allowing it to be nikrav, but it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It doesn't work. The ritzui, the tzitz, doesn't create a scenario where a food that would otherwise not be edible will now be edible. There's not that many Tanaim who hold this way. The Amar Tzitz Meratze ala Chilos, ela Rabbi Eliezer. Only Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that the tzitz can create for ritzui by achila. The other Tanaim hold that the tzitz can only help to bring a korban that is dechuya betuma. So we allow for it. Okay, that's what it does, but it doesn't allow for achila. And who is this Tana? This is Ela Rabbi Eliezer. So we're about 12 lines from the bottom to Tanya. How do we know the Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that the tzitz can enable one to eat? He's the only one who holds this way to Tanya. Rabbi Eliezer Omer hatzitz meratze ala chilos. Pretty black on white. Rabbi Eliezer holds very clearly that the tzitz allows for not only the hakrava, which everyone agrees to, but even for achila. But Rabbi Yossi Omer no, ein hatzitz meratze ala chilos. So assumption number one, like we said, is that we don't hold of tuma hutra b'tzibur, we hold that tuma is dechuya b'tzibur. It's not ideal, but what can we do? This is the scenario, everybody's tameh, but hutra is dechuya b'tzibur, we allow for the hakrava to be brought. What's the mechanism that allows it? It is the ritzui of the tzitz, but it doesn't apply to food. With those two assumptions, says the Gemara, Nema, maybe we can say, Mas Nisan Delok Rabbi Yoshua. Maybe we should say that our Mishnah, which allows for the hakrava, but not for the achila of 5 different types of korbanos and menachos, maybe we should therefore assume that it's not like Rabbi Yoshua de Tanya. What does the Brisa say? The Brisa says, based on a pasuk, ve'asisa olosecha basar v'hadam. What does that mean? You should make your olosecha, the meat and the blood. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, im ein dam, ein basar. If the blood spills, the meat's not kosher, no good. You can't eat it. And the reverse is also true. Imein basar ein dam. If after you took the blood, the meat became tameh, you cannot do zrika. You need to have both in good standing in order to have both in good standing. They're interdependent, in other words. If you don't have the dam, you can't, the basar is not, if you drop the blood, let's say, and it spills all over the floor, so then the halacha is that you can't eat the basar. Fine. That's the shita and the brisa of Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, I totally disagree with Rabbi Yoshua. And he says, Dama fal pi she'ein basar. He says, on one aspect of what your shita is, Rabbi Yoshua, I disagree. I hold that in regards to blood, you can do zrika, even if the meat is inedible because it became tameh. Shene'emar, because of the pasuk that says, the dam zevachecha yishafech, that the blood of your korbanos you should spill. Uma ani mekayim ve'asiso losecha basar v'hadam. What do you do with the pasuk that Rabbi Yoshua quoted? If Rabbi Yoshua quoted, he had a Mari Makom, and you're holding differently because of a different pasuk. What do you do with his pasuk? So his pasuk had a different purpose. So he says, Lomar lach, what would Rabbi Eliezer answer you? Madam bizrika af basar bezrika. It's a side halacha having nothing to do with this in particular, other than to say that just like dam is bezrika, you have to sprinkle it. So too, the basar is bezrika. What does it mean? The basar is bezrika. You have to throw the meat, says the Gemara. Have omer lul katan. There was a little hole, a little gap, bein kevesh lemizbeach, between the ramp and the actual mizbeach, and you had to make sure that you traversed it. You threw the meat over it. Fine, that's what it means. But it has nothing to do with this. But Rabbi Yoshua Nami, what do you do with the pasuk? What do you do with the pasuk that says "Haksi b'dam zevachecha yishafech"? Because according to Rabbi Eliezer, the pasuk of dam zevachecha yishafech taught us something totally different. It taught us that you are allowed to bring the zrikas hadam even if there is no basar. So then says the Gemara, how does Rabbi Yeshua answer that? Last line of Ayin Zayin Amar Aleph. Amar Lach, what would Rabbi Yeshua say to that? He would say, Haksiv Gabe, it says after those words, B'habasar tochel. That's only true where the meat is also edible, which is a raya to his own shita. But what that means is that there's now two psukim that support his shita. And because there's two psukim that support his shita, the Gemara says, turning to the top of Ayin Zayin Amud Beis, very top line, very top words, V'hani trei kroi lamali. I don't understand. Rabbi Yoshua, if you understood Rabbi Eliezer's pasuk the way that you created your own pshat in your pasuk, why both psukim? Says the Gemara, great question, but I've got a very clear answer for you. Chad be'ola, v'chad b'shlamim. One pasuk is talking about a korban ola, and the other is talking about a korban shlamim v'tzricha. And I need both of those psukim. I cannot assume that I can learn ola from shlamim and shlamim from ola. Why not? Why not? Says the Gemara as follows: V'tzricha. If the pasuk, if I only had a pasuk that spoke about a korban ola, that's where we say there's an interdependence on the dam and the basar. That if I don't have the dam, I can't eat the basar, and if the basar becomes tamei, I can't do zrikas adam. They're interdependent. Why do I need one pasuk by ola and one by shlamim? Because havamina di kasab rachmana ba'ola. If I only had a pasuk by ola, then havamina I might have thought ola hi dechamira shekain kalil. Maybe the ola is more strict because the whole thing is brought up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if that's true, then maybe aval shlamim delo chamire, but shlamim which are edible to a consumer, then emalo, I would have thought that the halacha is different. That maybe there Rabbi Yoshua would not say that the dam and the basar are interdependent. And the reverse, what about learning by shlamim first? Because of Rachman shlamim, if I only had a pasuk that taught me by shlamim, so then havamina, I might have thought, adarabba, the isbehu shtei achilos. I might have thought that the shlamim, at least there's two who consume HaKadosh Baruch Hu on the mizbeach, and people. There's two people who consume the shlamim. Aval ola deles be shtei achilos emalo. But maybe I would have argued that by ola there's not shtei achilos. So therefore, I might have thought that Rabbi Yeshua's din only applies by shlamim kamash malan. That we need both sets of psukim. We need the pasuk as Rabbi Yeshua presented at the bottom of the page, V'asiso losecha basar ve'adam, and we need the second pasuk, V'adam zevachacha yishafech, after which it says, V'habasar tochal, in order for Rabbi Yeshua to make his shita exceptionally clear. So let's just review. Rabbi Yeshua is of the opinion that the basar and the dam are interdependent. The only way you could ever have access to basar is if there was zrikas hadam, if the dam was viable, and vice versa. The only way you can do zrikas hadam is if the basar is still viable. Very good. So let's continue understanding the drashos, and then in about 10 or 15 lines, we're going to get to the Gemara's actual question, but we're just developing as we move along. Says the Gemara, 7 lines down, Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. Rabbi Eliezer Nami, but wait a minute. Rabbi Yeshua had a beautiful point. You said, Rabbi Eliezer, that you thought that dam could be brought either way, even if the basar is tamei, because the pasuk reads v'dam zevachecha yishafech. So we asked Rabbi Yeshua, hey, what do you do with this pasuk? And he said, well, it says v'habasar tochel that the meat was also edible. So Rabbi Eliezer, what do you do with that? That's a great question. 7, 8 lines down, Ayin Zayin Amud Beis, Rabbi Eliezer Nami. How do you understand the pasuk that Rabbi Yeshua so beautifully articulated supports his own shita of Haksi, the pasuk says, "V'abasar techel." So Amar Lach, what would Rabbi Eliezer answer you? Hahu, the pasuk of Habasar techel mi boile she'ein basar muter be'achila ad shizrak hadam. That means that ein basar muter. That pasuk teaches you that meat is inedible. She'ein basar muter be'achila. You cannot eat it until zrikas hadam. So asks the Gemara, if that's true, it seems that the whole pasuk is talking about one thing. It's only talking about when the basar is not allowed to be eaten before the zrikas hadam. But how do you know the reverse, Rabbi Eliezer? Dam afal pi shein sham basar. What about zrikas hadam when the basar is tamei minalan? How did you learn that out? It seems, according to your pshat, Rabbi Eliezer, that the whole pasuk is talking only about one case, which is when you have yet to do this rikas hadam and you want to try to eat the basar. So answers the Gemara, Amar lach, how would Rabbi Eliezer explain? He would say, Im kain, if what you're trying to say is true, that the pasuk is only talking about one thing, nichtov rachmana basar tochal, the hadar v'dam zevachecha yishafech. If what you're saying is true, it should have said that the basar is tochal, you should have eaten the flesh first, and then the dam yishafech. If that's what the whole pasuk was talking about, that's how the pasuk should have been structured, is eating the meat first, followed by the zrikas hadam. Kidichsi bereisha, like the first pasuk says, that it says the basar first, ve'asiso lasecha basar ve'adam. So ma'ishno, why then here is it te'aktimei l'dam zivachecha? In this later pasuk, why was the dam put before the zivachecha? Shma mina, must be, says Rabbi Eliezer, like I'm saying. Dam afal pi she'ein basar, u'shma mina she'ein basar mutar be'achila ad shizrak hadam. So he gives a very nice explanation. Rabbi Eliezer explains the pasuk within his own understanding. It makes perfect sense that it seems to be from the pasuk, the fact that the word dam comes before zivachecha, the blood comes before the basar. So he shows you from there that dam can be brought, even though the meat may not be kosher, the meat may be tamei. And what do we see from there? Ushma mina she'ein habasar mutar. We can learn from there she'ein habasar mutar, that the meat cannot be eaten be'achila until there's rikas hadam. What does Rabbi Yoshua do with this pshat? Rabbi Yoshua, he says, nope, I don't need a pasuk for that. Ein habasar moter b'achila shizarek hadam. I don't need a pasuk to teach me that you can't eat the meat until there's rikas hadam. That's a kal v'chomer hu. That's obvious. 3 lines before the wide lines, 1/3 of the way down. Ayin zayin amid beis. Says the Gemara, what's the kal v'chomer? How does Rabbi Yoshua know that meat cannot be eaten after a korban until zrikas hadam has taken place? Says the Gemara, Uma emurin dechilasnehu lo me'akvei. When there are parts of a korban that are not required, it's not me'akev the korban. You're allowed to keep moving in the process and do zrikas hadam. But ki isnehu me'akev. But when they are present, they are me'akev. So then dam dechilese me'akev. When there's missing blood, it will certainly hinder your kapara. Ki ise, when the blood is there, lo kol shekein me'akev. All the more so it's going to cause for a problem. So says Rabbi Yoshua to Rabbi Eliezer, you brought me a whole fancy drasha. You don't need a whole fancy drasha to teach me that you can't eat the basar before zrikas hadam. That's pashut. That's a kal v'chomer. Rabbi Eliezer, what about this gorgeous svara of the kal v'chomer? Says the Gemara, I don't disagree with him. He's right. First wide line. Rabbi Eliezer, what would you say about the kal v'chomer of Rabbi Yehoshua? I agree with him. Milsa dasi b'kal v'chomer tarach v'kasav lakra. We've seen this principle before. Where did we see this? In this Maseches Daf Yomi, says the Gemara, it's not uncommon where you see a kal v'chomer that's verified by a pasuk. That's a very interesting idea. A kal v'chomer is itself one of the Yud Gimel Midos Shator Nidreshes Bahin. Why do we need a pasuk to support it? And maybe because of that, Rabbi Yoshua bites back. Rabbi Yoshua, when do we do a drasha? When we need to. He doesn't do this whole kal v'chomer drasha extra stuff. He doesn't believe in that. So that's where they end up standing. Now, the Gemara is going to finally ask its question. We've said a number of things right now. I'll just review very, very briefly. Under the assumption that Tuma is dechuya, and therefore we need the tzitz to be miratze. And under the assumption that it's only miratze for korbanos, and it's not miratze for achila. Therefore asks the Gemara, 2 lines into the wide lines. Hashta, maybe we should now say, Lema Masnisin Deloki Rabbi Yoshua. Maybe we should say that our Mishnah, which allows for the hakrava of 5 korbanos / menachos, that should not be like Rabbi Yoshua. The kevan de Amar Ba'inan Tarte, because Rabbi Yoshua is of the opinion that Ba'inan Tarte, that the dam and basar are interchangeable. They're interdependent, not interchangeable, but interdependent. Vitzitz achilos lo miratze, and there's no ritzui for achila. So then, hechi asi betuma. How can the korbanos be brought betuma? Now, if we pause here and look back in our Mishnah said that there are 5 things that are brought betuma but are not eaten. For Rabbi Yoshua, that's impossible because hutra is only the tuma is only dechuya. Tuma is only allowed b'di'evet, and it needs the tzitz to make it allowed. But the tzitz doesn't allow for achila. But our Mishnah is 5 hakravos and menachos that are brought but without achila. So according to Rabbi Yeshua, that's impossible. That's a Gemara's question. Very, very lengthy question, but it's not that complicated of a question. And the Gemara is going to present 1, 2, 3, 4 answers, which will bring us to the top of Ayin Ches Amud Aleph. Let's get started with the answers. Halfway down, 4 lines into the wide lines. Afilu Tema Rabbi Yoshua. Don't worry, we can even give pshat in our Mishnah, like the Shita of Rabbi Yoshua. How so? Kasavar, maybe he holds a little differently than we thought. Kasavar Rabbi Yoshua, Hatzitz Meratze Al Ha'olim. Maybe we can assume not that it's Meratze by Achila, but that anything that goes up onto the Mizbeach, anything that's Ole onto the Mizbeach, that is going to be considered to be a ritzui. Afal that it's not eligible for achila, but we consider that enough of a ritzui that Rabbi Yeshua would tolerate it. Says the Gemara, even if you want to say that's true, it's not a good idea. Fine. Some of the 5 examples that we have in our Mishnah were actual korbanos that were brought, and therefore they were ola to the mizbeach. However, Ella Omer, the shtei halechem. What about these korbanos that were menachos? They were flour-based korbanos, and they were not put up on the mizbeach. The leika olin, they're not brought up there. Ma'ika lemeimar. What then would you say about this new svara of Rabbi Yoshua, that maybe the ritzui works because it's ola on the mizbeach, that the tzitz helps in that way? Amrei, says the Gemara, ki Amar Rabbi Yoshua nami devo'inan tarte bizvachem. Maybe we could say that the only time that Rabbi Yoshua has his rule that dam and basar are interdependent is only by actual korbanos, by the zvachim themselves. But maybe b'menachos lo amar. And therefore, the only kash in our Mishnah is on those things which are actual korbanos, but those things which are menachos are not really part of the problem. Says the Gemara, you can't say that either. 7 lines down in the wide lines, a little bit more than halfway down. V'menachos lo amar. You think that Rabbi Yoshua is of the opinion that when it comes to menachos, that there's no interdependency? V'atznan, the Mishnah writes, nitmu shireha. What are we talking about here when the shireha becomes tameh? So you have a bowl that's filled with flour, and the Kohen reaches in and he takes a kmitza, grabs the flour, opens the thumb, opens the pinky, and what's left in his hand is the kmitza, and he moves it out of the way. What's left over is called the shirayim. If it becomes tameh, or of du shireha, or if the bowl from which you took the kmitza, or if it gets lost, Kimidas Rabbi Eliezer Kshera. Rabbi Eliezer was of the opinion, no problem, because you already took out the Kmitza. But Kimidas Rabbi Yoshua Psula. What do we see from Rabbi Yoshua? No, you messed it up. So we see that by Menachos, we have the same exact guidelines, that there's an interdependency. So answers the Gemara to this question, Kimidas Philo Kimidas. Kind of, sort of. Let's detail out how we could answer this question. Says the Gemara, Kimidas Rabbi Yoshua, the B'Inon Tarte. Yes, I agree that when it comes to the menachos, it is like the shita of Rabbi Yoshua that we do have an interdependency of the kmitza itself and the shirayim. The lo kmitza Rabbi Yoshua, but it's also different than Rabbi Yoshua in the following way. Rabbi Yoshua bezvachim amar the menachos lo amar. But when it comes to Rabbi Yoshua, in regards to zvachim, he does believe in the interdependency, but not in regards to menachos. Vidu haitana, but this Mishnah has a different author. The Mishnah which says that behatzna nitmu shireha, that it's psula, that's not him speaking. Vidu haitana savar afilu b'menachos. Says the Gemara. But then who is the author? Umanu haitana dekai kavase umachmir tfei. Who is the shita who's more machmir than Rabbi Yoshua that you're quoting? The ode, and furthermore, and we're going to learn a very, very difficult brisa to understand. We'll explain it on Ayin Ches Amud Aleph. And right now we're only going to extract one nakuda from this semi-lengthy brisa. The ode, Tanya, we have a very unique brisa. What does the brisa say? Amar Rabbi Yossi says, Roe ani as divi Rabbi Eliezer b'menachos uvizvachim. I agree with Rabbi Eliezer when it comes to menachos, the flour types of korbanos in our Mishnah, and the zvachim, the actual shchita ones. And also, it's like when they say, like, you're right, and you're also right. Everybody's right. So then he says as well, I agree with everything about Rabbi Eliezer. And then he says, Rabbi Yoshua b'zvachim menachos, I agree with him as well. So how does he explain everything? So it says the Gemara as follows. Dibi Rabbi Eliezer b'zvachim. What does Rabbi Yossi say? How do I explain Rabbi Eliezer in regards to actual korbanos? Shaya Omer Rabbi Eliezer, as we saw in the previous Amud, held dam afal pi she'ein sham basar. Yes, you can do zrikas hadam even if the basar is ineligible to be eaten. Dibi Rabbi Yoshua b'zvachim. Shaya Omer. In regards to zvachim, how does he agree with Rabbi Yoshua? He says im ein dam ein basar, im ein basar ein dam, that they are totally interdependent. Now, again, this can't possibly make sense. You can't hold like both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. They're not saying the same thing. They're opposing contrarian shitas. This doesn't work. And what about the next piece of the brisa? Rabbi Eliezer ben Menachos. Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Eliezer in regards to Menachos. Shayomer komitza af al pi she'ein shiraim. You can do kmitza even if the shiraim are ineligible. And then this line is the one that's key for us right now. But Rabbi Yehoshua, how does Rabbi Yossi understand Rabbi Yehoshua? Menachos. What does he say about the flour hakrava, the flour gifts? Shaya Omer im ein kometz ein shiraim. That if there's no kmitza, if there's something wrong with the flour that was taken out for the kmitza, ein shiraim, then the shiraim are no longer usable. And here are the most critical words of the line: im ein shiraim ein kometz. That if the shiraim are problematic, then there's no kmitza. So basically, your whole recommended approach that you've been saying over the last 10 lines, that maybe the tzitz is meratza on the olin, and maybe it only applies to zvachim and not to menachos, maybe, but that's not Rabbi Yehoshua. Because this brisa shows us Rabbi Yeshua's shita black on white, that there's definitely going to be an interdependency even in regards to korban menachos. And because that's true, answer number one is rejected. And if we stopped right here, which we won't, but if we stopped right here, Rabbi Yeshua's shita would be very compromised as it relates to our Mishnah. So let's see what the second possible answer is. 3/4 of the way down, about 15 lines up. Ela Kosava Rabbi Yehoshua, says the Gemara, maybe one of our starting two assumptions was incorrect. One of our starting assumptions was that the tzitz cannot create ritzui be'achila. The tzitz can only create ritzui about bringing the korban, but you're not actually allowed to eat that food, says the Gemara. Well, maybe we made a mistake. Ela Kosava Rabbi Yehoshua, tzitz meratze al ha'achilos. Maybe you're just wrong, Pasha, that the tzitz does have such a power, not only for korbanos, but even for achila, says the Gemara. Ihachi amai kimidas Rabbi Yehoshua psula. What then does it mean that in the brisa that we just saw, that kimidas Rabbi Yehoshua psula? What would be puzzled then? If what you're saying is that it's eligible for food, then how in the brisa could you say that it's going to be possible according to Rabbi Yehoshua? It's got ritzui. If the tzitz can work for food, then the brisa doesn't make sense according to Rabbi Yeshua's. Answers the Gemara, no. What did the brisa mean? Rabbi Yeshua said that it's a problem that is psula. That wasn't talking about the achila. That's not talking about tuma. That's talking about avud v'saruv. If the food was lost or if the food was burnt, but not if the food was tameh. Because if the food is lost or if the food is burnt, everyone agrees there's no ritzui from the tzitz. The only thing the tzitz could do at the most is make food eligible. But if you lost the food, or if you burnt the food and it's no longer food, there's no ritzui for that. Under the best of circumstances, all the time, no one's going to say that the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol can do magic pixie dust and take food that doesn't exist and make it into eligible food. That's not a possibility. So then, what then does it mean when it talks about tamei food? What then is that talking? It mentions tamei food in the brisa. Says the Gemara, that must be talking about Rabbi Eliezer. No, come on, it can't be talking about Rabbi Eliezer. Pshita, that's not possible, because we already know for sure that he holds that. Hashta yesh lomar avud v'sarav to leisnehu machshir Rabbi Eliezer. In regards to a case where the food is totally missing or burnt, and we don't even have it, and machshir Rabbi Eliezer. Nitma de isay midbaya. Of course, he's going to include food that's tamei. Rabbi Eliezer, the makil here. Ella, what must therefore it be? Ella pshita Rabbi Yehoshua v'ktani psula. This is a big problem. It must be that it's talking about Rabbi Yehoshua and v'ktani psula, and then you're all stuck again. So let's ask a second question before we reject this answer. Va'od. And furthermore, our second question against this answer, that maybe really there's ritzui with the tzitz, even for the sake of achila, says the Gemara. Va'od Tanya, we're 10 lines from the bottom. Tanya, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, kol zvachim sheba Torah bein shenitma basar v'chelev kayam. Whether or not the basar is tamei and the chelev is not tamei. Ubein shenitma chelev ubasar kayam. Or if the chelev becomes tamei and the basar is eligible to be eaten, in all cases zorek es hadam. Aval nitmu, if it was tamei, tarvai hulo. Neither of them can be eaten. Alma kasava Rabbi Yehoshua ein hatzitz miratze al haolin velo al haachilos. So what do we see from this brisa? That it's not possible to say within Rabbi Yehoshua that the tzitz can affect the eligibility of food for achila purposes. Only at most for the sake of hakrava, but absolutely not for the sake of achila. And that then rejects answer number 2. So we're back to our question. How does Rabbi Yehoshua fit with our Mishnah? Answer number 3, 6 lines from the bottom. Olam Rabbi Yoshua he umas nisin v'lo kashya. There's no problem. Kan lechatchila kan di'evet. We're talking about one case of Rabbi Yoshua is talking about b'di'evet. One's talking about lechatchila. Ki amar Rabbi Yoshua lechatchila di'evet lo. So that's what he's saying. He's saying it's one. It's just because lechatchila yes, and b'di'evet lo. Uminat timra deshani Rabbi Yoshua ben lechatchila b'di'avad. How do we know that Rabbi Yoshua has a precedent to make such a distinction? Because the Tanya, the Brisa writes, nitma basar o shenifsal o sheyasa chutz l'klaim. If you have a case of basar that become tameh or became pasal or left to the appropriate halachic area, Rabbi Eliezer omer yizareg, Rabbi Yoshua omer lo yizareg. Umod Rabbi Yoshua sheim zarak hurtza. That even if you did it, the language, I super b'diavad language of ve'im sheim zarak, that it would still be considered hurtza, it's still considered ritzui, and that's definitely b'diavad. So says the Gemara. Wait a minute, 2 questions. We're getting to the end of this portion of the Gemara. Chada the psula diavad mashma. It doesn't sound that way. Psula is not a language of b'diavad. If you want to say it's psula, then that doesn't sound b'diavad kosher. Psula sounds puzzle. So that's first of all. Second of all, the od chamisha dvarim bar lechatchila mashma. When you look at our Mishnah, what does our Mishnah say on the bottom of Ayin Vav Amud Beis? It says chamisha dvarim bayin betuma. That doesn't sound b'diavad. That sounds mutter. Ela lo kasha, says the Gemara, top of Ayin Chesed Aleph. Lo kasha, don't worry, all is well. Kan b'yachid, kan b'tzibur. Really, one version of Rabbi Yoshua is talking about an individual. One's talking about a tzibur. Rashi dibur hamaschal b'yachid. Top Rashi on the page Ayin Chesed Aleph. Rashi says lechatchila psula. Really, it's not ideal. And if b'di'evad you were zorek in a case of a yachid, then it would be fine. Umas nisin. Our Mishnah is talking about b'tzibur b'ayin lechatchila the tumas tzibur who beheter. Good. So we found out one way where we can solve the problem for Rabbi Yoshua. The last blot and a half is I'll simplify. How does Rabbi Yoshua fit into our Mishnah? There are a number of assumptions that make it difficult for him to do so, because Sutra is dechuya, number 1, and there's no ritzui from the tzitz as it relates to achila. Answers the Gemara. The Rabbi Yoshua in our Mishnah is talking about a yachid. Rabbi Yoshua is talking about a yachid, and our Mishnah is talking about a tzibur. Now we're going to do the same analysis, but shorter, much shorter. This one's only a half a page in total, for the sake of Shitas Rabbi Yossi. And let's see how he fits. 19 minutes until Marav and a nice amud to go. Let's keep moving. Top line, Ayin Chesed Aleph. Neima masnisin delok Rabbi Yossi. Maybe we should assume that our Mishnah, which says that you're allowed to bring five types of korbanos betuma, but you're not allowed to eat them, maybe that doesn't work for Rabbi Yossi either. The Tanya, what does the Brisa say? Rabbi Eliezer Omer atzitz meratza ala achilos. Rabbi Eliezer says that the tzitz does work for food. Rabbi Yossi Omer ein atzitz meratza ala achilos. No, it doesn't work for food. Kasal kadaitach. What do we see from here? We might have thought as follows: it seems like he holds like we've been saying for the last amud, that the shita of Rabbi Yoshua is multiple levels of it, but one of them is that the tzitz does not help for food, and therefore, if it doesn't help for food, that means that the basar and the dam are going to be independent. Basar below dam and dam below basar. It seems that Rabbi Yoshua sphere the amar ba'inan tarte. So it seems then, if this brisa is correct, that Rabbi Yossi holds that ein hatzitz meratze al ha'achilos, it seems then that Rabbi Yossi is no different than Rabbi Yoshua, and it would then be, we have the same answer at the top of the page, but seemingly Rabbi Yossi on his own might not be able to work out our Mishnah. So says the Gemara, 7 lines down, Ayin Chesed Aleph, lo, incorrect. You misunderstood. Rabbi Yossi really is Rabbi Eliezer Sfirale. Damar dam afal pi she'ein basar. He holds like the lenient sheet. He holds like Rabbi Eliezer. Says the Gemara, Hachi lemay hilchasein etzitz meratze al achilos. If you hold like Rabbi Eliezer, then what is this brisa doing talking about ein etzitz meratze al achilos? That's not Rabbi Eliezer. So says the Gemara, ulatamech. Once you're making the comparison, don't ask a question that way. Ask it in the other way. You're saying that he holds like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer damar hatzitz meratze kevon damar dam afal pi she'ein basar hatzitz meratze al achilos lemay hilchasa. Then I don't even understand the point of either shita. You're saying two people are compared to each other. They both hold opposite shitas. Rabbi Yossi says that there's no ritzui from the tzitz on food. And Rabbi Eliezer says the opposite. How do you compare the two shitas at all? So it says the Gemara, because the comparison of Rabbi Eliezer to Rabbi Yossi is not about this issue. Ella lemikbe'e bepigul ulafuki me'ila kamiflage. We're talking about whether or not, in a particular case where there's pigul, whether or not there will be me'ila, and what might remove the me'ila. That would be the tzitz, and that's what they're arguing about. Rabbi Eliezer savar miratze tzitz iluya, that the tzitz is effective in regards to me'ilah. Umashvele ketahar, we treat it to be totally tahar. V'kavala b'pigul, it may have an isser pigul, but umapik le midei me'ilah. The tzitz is powerful enough to uproot the me'ilah. However, Rabbi Yossi savar lo meratze tzitz iluya v'lo mashvele ketar v'lo kavala b'pigul v'lo mapik le midei me'ilah. The tzitz has no impact, and this animal is going to be chayav by me'ilah. So maskif la, says the Gemara, wait a minute. Maskif la Rav Mari, Nihinami de Rav Yossi savar Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, you've given a nice explanation, and maybe I understand why it is that Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Eliezer. Bishlama zvachim ikadam, I could understand in regards to zvachim that there's blood, so there's some that's edible, some that's not. Omer nami ikakometz, there's part that's edible and there's part that's not. Lechem apanim nami ikabazichen, part that's edible, part that's not. The whole thing is kare. So what are you going to do? The whole thing just sits there. Says the Gemara, and if you want to say, well, don't worry, by the shtei halechem, it also says in the Mishnah, lekarevi mahen, that other korbanos were brought with it, which were the kivsei atzeres. There were other breads, there were other korbanos that were brought on Shavuos with the shtei halechem. Hainu shalmei tzibur. If that's the case, those are called shalmei tzibur, and that was one of the 5 things in our Mishnah. So it's already included. And if that's true, if what this is talking about, the shtei halechem is referring to is the korbanos that were brought with it, then in kain havaluha arba. Then our Mishnah made a mistake. It shouldn't have been 5, it should have only been 4. And our Mishnah says, not like that. Our Mishnah says that there were 5. So we're 2 lines halfway down. 2 lines before the Y lines have Elakasav Rabbi Yossi, Tuma Hutra B'tzibur. Wow, so maybe Rabbi Yossi holds that one of our assumptions of our whole Gemara today was that maybe our Mishnah is talking about Tuma Hutra B'tzibur, or maybe it's talking about Techuya. So we said it was talking about Techuya, says Rabbi Yossi, you're wrong. We're talking about Tuma Hutra B'tzibur, a total free-for-all. You're totally allowed to bring the korbanos. It's not Techuya, it's Hutra. So then says the Gemara, that's very, very difficult. Why? Because the Brisa writes, Echad zeh ve'echad zeh, in regards to both a Para Aduma and a Kohen Gadol who's preparing for Yom Kippurim. So how do we get this Kohen Gadol who's Tamei Meis to get ready for the Avodah? He's got 7 days to prepare. So we know that when someone is Tamei Meis, they're Mazeh on day Shlishi and day Revi. But there's a machlokas in regards to the Kohen Gadol as he prepares for Yom Kippurim. What's the machlokas? Mazan alav kol shiva mikol chatos shahayu sham divrei Rab Meir. One shita is that when the Kohen Gadol is preparing for Yom Kippur, he gets the sprinklings of all of the mechatas over the course of 7 days. Every day he gets sprinkled with the mechatas. First long line, Rabbi Yossi Omer, ein mazin alav ela shlishi u'shvi bilvad. What does Rabbi Yossi say? You need sprinkling on day 3, and you need sprinkling on day 7. But that doesn't make sense. If you hold that Tuma is Hutra B'tzibur entirely, then who cares if he's Tameh? Tuma's Hutra B'tzibur. He doesn't need Hazah at all. Forget about Shlishi Shvi. Certainly forget about the first sheet on that Brisa. He doesn't need anything. El Machvarta, we have to go back to our initial understanding of Rabbi Yossi. Masnisan Dulo ke Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara then rejects the possibility that Rabbi Yossi is like our Mishnah. So far we've learned about 2 shitas. How does our Mishnah intersect with Rabbi Yoshua? We gave an answer at the very top of Ayin Chesed Aleph to say, Lo kasha kan b'yachid kan b'tzibor. We made that work. Rabbi Yoshua can fit within our Mishnah. However, Rabbi Yossi could not snake out of some of the challenges, and because of that, Rabbi Yossi is not like our Mishnah. Almost 2/3 of the way down, we're now going to go back to that complicated brisa where it seemed like Rabbi Yossi was holding both like Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, and we're going to figure out how exactly he understood that brisa. Amar le'Rab Papa le'Abaye, the Rabbi Yossi ishtara mezaki in the Beit Trehu. He's agreeing with everybody. He's got a contract with him and a contract with him. What's going on here? The Tanya, the Bryce is very complicated. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Ro'ani es Debi Rabbi Eliezer b'zvachim, Debi Rabbi Yeshua b'zvachim, Debi Rabbi Eliezer b'nachos, Debi Rabbi Yeshua b'nachos. He agrees with everybody. And what did he say there? Debi Rabbi Eliezer b'zvachim, Shai Omer Dam Afal Pi Shein Basar. In regards to zvachim, Rabbi Yossi said, Rabbi Eliezer, I agree with him, and he says that you can do zrikas adam without basar, and then he literally turns a face and he says something totally the opposite. Debi Rabbi Yeshua b'zvachim. What does Rabbi Yeshua say by zvachim? Shai Omer Yimein Dam in Basar, Yimein Basar in Dam. So a second ago, you held like Rabbi Eliezer, that you can do Zrikas Adam without Basar. Second later, you just said we hold like Rabbi Yoshua, that no, you can't do it. Which one is it? And also, continuing our understanding of the Brisa from Daf Ayin Zayin and Beis, the Brisa there continued, Rabbi Eliezer b'menachos shaya omer kol meitzaf al pi she'ein sham shiraim. We said by the menachos, Rabbi Eliezer was lenient. You can do the kmitza even if the shiraim are messed up, they're tamei. However, Rabbi Yeshua b'menachos shaya omer im ein sham shiraim ein kometz im ein kometz ein shiraim. They are interdependent, like his shita l'shitaso. So says the Gemara, no. Rabbi Yossi wasn't saying that I agree with everybody. Come on, there's no integrity in that. This is a great Tana. There's no way that Rabbi Yossi was just saying I agree with everybody. How does he explain it? Answer number one, we're going to have a few answers here. Amar le mistabra kamar. No, Rabbi Yossi was just saying it makes sense to say the following. Kikai bizvachim. When we were having a machlokes between Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer b'tzvachim, Amar, Rabbi Yossi said, mistabra, it's logical, the kihechi de pligi b'tzvachim, pligi nami b'menachos, that just like they're arguing by korbanos as to whether or not there's a total interdependency, yes or no, just like we argue by zvachim, we also argue by menachos. And kai b'menachos, the opposite is also true. When you're learning Maseches menachos and you come across Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer, they're machlokes, kai b'menachos amar, mistabra ki echid pligi b'menachos, pligi nami b'zvachim. Answer number one is like this. No, I'm not saying that I agree with everyone. Their shitas are internally contradictory. Of course, I don't agree with everyone. I'm just saying that when you're learning zvachim, Zushtel, they probably are arguing in Menachos also. Same machlokes. And when they're in Menachos, same deal. When I look over at the world of Zvachim, they're probably going to have the same machlokes. Rabbi Eliezer says they're not totally interdependent, and Rabbi Yeshua says they are totally interdependent. Says the Gemara, Amar Lei, 10, 12 lines from the bottom. How can that be? I understand the first part. When you're learning Maseches Zvachim, so then Omar, I hear your logic. Then mistabra that kihechi de palig bizvachim pligi nami b'menachos. Kihechi de pligi bizvachim pligi nami b'menachos. When you're learning zvachim, I could understand why you would make the tzushtel to say that just like they argue by zvachim, so too they argue by menachos, because because I'm looking over here in the world of zvachim. This was the whole deal we started with on the bottom of and all over Ayin Zion to figure out how the psukim work out. That's where all the droshos were. I understood their machlokas. I can apply it elsewhere. But 10 lines from the bottom. When I'm learning Maseches Menachos, when I'm standing in Menachos and I'm looking out into the world of Zvachim and saying they have a machlokas there as well, that doesn't work. The psukim are not by Menachos. So it's not as easy to say that just like there's an argument by Zvachim, so to be Menachos. No, the Psukim were by Zvachim. When you're standing by Menachos, it's harder to say that just like they have an argument by Menachos, they have one by Zvachim, because all the Psukim were by Zvachim. And the Lokasha says the Gemara, let's pivot and try for answer number two. What did it mean? What was Rabbi Yossi's understanding of this brisa, where seemingly he said he held like everybody, I hold like Rabbi Yoshua, I hold like Rabbi Eliezer? Answer number two. Says the Gemara, so the distinction he made is I agree with Rabbi Eliezer in regards to Tuma, but I agree with Rabbi Yoshua in regards to Avud V'Saruv. So B'Nitzma my taima, in regards to the camp of Rabbi Eliezer, why then would he have agreed with Tameh? That why does he agree that there's a leniency like Rabbi Eliezer holds? Because maybe Rabbi Eliezer would hold that there's a tzitz, that there is the ritui of the tzitz, and it's fine, says Gemara. But wait a minute. Hashamas le Rabbi Yossi the Amar Eina tzitz miratza ala chilos. That doesn't make sense. Rabbi Yossi doesn't even hold of that. How does that work out? How could he explain that for another shita? That says the Gemara. Elalo kasha. Here's pivot, and we're going to see answer number three. Roe ani estiv Rabbi Eliezer bit tzibor, just like the answer over the top of the page. That maybe Rabbi Eliezer we can be lenient when it's a tzibor, and Roe ani estiv Rabbi Yoshua biyachid. Maybe we can give such a distinction. Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Eliezer bit tzibor, and he holds like Rabbi Yoshua biyachid. Says Gemara, bit tzibor my taima. We're gonna reject this. Why would that be true? But in regards to the tzibor, mishum the tuma hutra bit tzibor. Maybe it's because we would hold too much of it, but Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold too much of it tzibor. Chada the shamas the Rabbi Yossi tuma dechuya b'tzibor. That's first of all. Rabbi Yossi doesn't agree with that. Rabbi Yossi was of the opinion that tuma is not hutra b'tzibor, it's dechuya. So that's the first problem with your suggestion. The ode Ibit Sibor, Rabbi Eliezer, Machsher, Rabbi Velo, Rabbi Yoshua. If in fact it was Bitsibor, in this case with Menachos and with Zvachim, only one of them would be Mater Bitsibor. That's not true. Top of Ayin Chesam and Beis. We're just going to get to the Mishnah right before Mariv. Says the Gemara, that can't be Ha'amris Bitsibor, that when we are Bitsibor in this case, Afilu Rabbi Yoshua Modeh, even Rabbi Yoshua, who's the Machmir, would agree in this case that it would be Mutter. So no, that can't be a distinction either. Ella, says the Gemara, another answer. We'll reject this too. Two more answers. Ella ro ani as Rabbi Elazar b'diavad, v'di Rabbi Yoshua lechatchila. So says the Gemara, maybe what Rabbi Yossi meant in the Brisa was when Rabbi Eliezer was lenient, it was just b'diavad. And really, Rabbi Yoshua is just speaking lechatchila, and there's really no machlokes at all. Says the Gemara, diavad, afilu Rabbi Yoshua nami modehu. That's not true, because explicitly elsewhere we see that Rabbi Yoshua himself allows for the b'diavad. How do we know that that's true? Diktani, Moda Rabbi Yoshua, Shim Zara Kurza. We see that there's a b'diavad language already that's specific to Rabbi Yoshua, which means that they don't agree. That's not possible. So let's go to answer number 5, and with this we will close out for the night. Says the Gemara, it must be then ha betuma, ha be'avad v'sarav. Where we are lenient, that is the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yossi says when it comes to Tuma, I hold like Rabbi Eliezer. Avad v'sarav. But with one of them, when it comes to Avad v'sarav, so that is where we're going to be more machmer. Kiktani mod Rabbi Yoshua Shim Zara Kurtza Benitma. We see the leniency, the b'diavad nature. I'm saying b'diavad here, in that it's mutter. In the tuma is allowed if it's zarak v'hortza. Aval b'avad v'sarflo, that would not be allowed. Kikama Rabbi Yossi Roni is Rabbi Eliezer b'diavad b'avad v'sarf. And his the way that Rabbi Eliezer will swoop in at the end is if in fact with Avad V'sarav he would allow it and Rabbi Yoshua would not. We're going to stop right here at the Mishnah. In Yirtzeh Hashem, we will get to the bottom of Ayin Tes and Beis tomorrow night. And I wish you all a beautiful night. Thank you for learning and joining tonight.